just in case. First of all, my name is Steve Corbo, and I'm the curator of the Italian-American Veterans Museum and Library. And on behalf of the board of directors of the museum and all of our members, I want to welcome you all here tonight. We have an outstanding program in store, and we're happy that each and every one of you are here tonight to spend it with us. This year, a little bit about our museum. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary. We're proud of the fact that from day one, the museum has been and continues to be run entirely by volunteers. And like this evening's event, admission is always free of charge. If you haven't visited our museum, I know some of you have and some of you haven't, I encourage you all to take a walk right across the parking lot. We're on the 3rd floor of the building next door. We do have an elevator, and the museum will be open immediately following this evening's presentation. So I encourage all of you, even if you've been there before, to come up and take a look. Now, before we begin, I'd like to ask you all please to rise. Gentlemen, remove your hats. And at this time, I'd like to call Mr. Carl Laturi to the stage to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I want to point out that Carl is a World War II veteran. He's the father of a Marine who was a Vietnam veteran, and he's a retired police officer. So here's a man who spent his entire adult life serving his country, serving his community, and I couldn't think of a better representative to lead us here tonight in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Carl Laturi.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, a couple of things real quick. As you know, this past Friday was Veterans Day, and even though we're a little beyond November 11th, this is kind of our Veterans Day here, and we want to pay tribute and acknowledge all who served, not only those who are not with us, but those here in this room tonight. So, especially those here tonight, I'd like you all to stand. Anybody who's a veteran, who served in the military, anyone who's active duty, please rise and give them a round of applause. We'd like to acknowledge your service to this country. Thank you. Also, in today's world, we all live with the threat of terrorism, and it's present on all fronts. So I'd also like to call any police officers, firefighters, first responders that are here with us tonight. Please stand. We'd like to acknowledge you and give you a round of applause as well. That's okay, we'll forgive you. Also, I have a couple of people here that I think deserve a special thanks. First of all, he's right here in the front row, Mr. Anthony Fornelli. Tony Fornelli is the founder of our museum. It was his idea, it was his concept, and in the beginning, he literally reached into his own pocket and put his own money on the table to help launch this beautiful museum that we have. If it wasn't for Tony Fornelli, there would be no Italian-American Veterans Museum and Library. So once again, give him a special round of applause. Also here tonight, I want to give a special thanks to a gentleman who is a U.S. Army veteran. He's a Vietnam veteran. He was with the 1st Cavalry Division, Air Mobile, here with us tonight. If it wasn't for him, this night wouldn't have happened. And I want to tell you a quick story for a minute. We had a special event here at the Casa, at our museum. It was an outdoor event, and naturally it rained. And it poured cats and dogs. And we were not trying to replicate the monsoons of Vietnam, but I think if we were pretty close. Just a downpour of rain, wind, it was cold, it was a sea of mud outside, and it, quite frankly, was a complete disaster. And I was up in the museum, and I think we had people that were showing up that never bothered to get out of their cars, and half the people that said three-quarters of the people that said they were going to show up didn't show up. So I was upstairs in the museum all alone, scratching my head, what little hair I have left, trying to think, what our next move is. And into the museum walked a gentleman, very quiet, unassuming, and he walked around and he took a look, and I noticed that he was spending some time at our Vietnam exhibit. And walked over to him, and we started up a conversation. One thing led to another, and he said, you guys have a heck of a museum here. More people ought to know about this. He got us involved with his organization, the Sheridan's chapter of the 1st Cavalry Association, and we met several members through him. And really, he's the one I think that is responsible for making the contact with our featured speaker tonight, and that's why we're all here. So Terry Hodis, I want to give you a special round of applause. I mean, he really turned a lemon into lemonade. So thank you, and I'm glad you're here. I wanted to make sure that everyone heard that story, because you're the guy that kind of put this thing together and made it happen. Also, a couple of people here with us tonight. Mr. Bob Larson. Give him a round of applause. DuPage County Commissioner and Lieutenant Colonel, United States Marine Corps, retired. Sam Pulley, the Mayor of Westchester. Give him a round of applause. Richard Veenstra, the Mayor of Addison, here with us tonight. Give him a round of applause. Thank you, Mayor. Pete DeCiani, here you are. Give him a round of applause. And Cynthia McKee, also here with us tonight. Veteran Service Officer, Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs. Give her a round of applause. There she is in the back. Now, before I introduce our speaker for the evening, I want to say a few words about the Medal of Honor. First of all, it's our nation's highest military decoration. It's awarded for, and this is a direct quote, conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life, above and beyond the call of duty in action involving actual conflict with an opposing armed force. I'm not a big one for numbers, and I don't want to bore you with numbers, but I just felt that it was so important to give you an idea of just how special the Medal of Honor is and a Medal of Honor recipient. During the Vietnam War, from 1964 to 1975, there were 8,744 people who served in the United States military. Of that number, 3,403,000 were deployed to Southeast Asia. Only 258 were recipients of the Medal of Honor, and more than 50% of those 258 were awarded posthumously. Only 53 Medal of Honor recipients from the Vietnam War are alive today, and one of them is our guest speaker this evening. Very quickly, he was born right here, Chicago, 1945, in the Roseland neighborhood. He grew up in Northwest Indiana. He enlisted in the United States Army from Chicago in 1964, and after completing his initial training, he served in Germany. As the U.S. involvement in Vietnam escalated, the need for more troops became apparent, and our speaker this evening volunteered for duty in Vietnam. Upon arrival in Vietnam, he was assigned to D Company, 1st Battalion of the 12th Cav, as part of the 1st Cavalry Division Air Mobile. And I think it's important to point out that of all the U.S. Army divisions, brigades that served in Vietnam, the unit with the single highest casualties, the single highest number of their members killed in action was the 1st Air Cav, with 5,444 members making the ultimate sacrifice. Initially, he served as a rifleman, and later he was assigned to the role of a radio telephone operator, or commonly referred to as an RTO. Now, for those of you that weren't in the military or just don't know, I don't want you to think that a radio telephone operator was sitting in some bunker someplace at a nice desk with a switchboard and answering the phone. You know, in reality, you were out in the field, you were humping, or you had on your back a 25-pound radio, plus your pack, plus your ruck, your weapon, all your ammunition, and all the other personal equipment that you carried. You were constantly at arm's length from either your platoon or company commander, because you were the source and the line of communication And then you had a big antenna that stuck way up in the sky on your back. And that served as, a flag, if you will, to tell the enemy, here I am. So being a radio telephone operator and being next to the unit commander, you were the prime target they were all gunning for. So this was some pretty hazardous duty. And it was while functioning in that capacity that on December 15th of 1967, our guest speaker this evening, Alan Lynch's actions resulted in him receiving the Congressional Medal of Honor. Give him a round of applause. But I also want to point out there's more to Al Lynch than just his experience in Vietnam and his battlefield heroics. After leaving active duty in the Army, he continued to serve his country and his community in both the U.S. Army Reserves and the Illinois National Guard, retiring after 21 years of service. In addition, you deserve it. I like those applause. In addition, he worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs, where he advocated for increased benefits for all veterans, but especially disabled veterans. He served as the chief of the Illinois Attorney General's Veterans Rights Bureaus. In addition to this, he also established the Alan Lynch Foundation to provide assistance to veterans and their families in the recovery or education process, allowing a veteran to move forward with their life after service and integrate back into the community. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time, I'd like to call up to the stage to have him tell his story. And for this, I want a standing ovation. Give it up, ladies and gentlemen. Here is Medal of Honor recipient Alan Lynch.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Stay. How much you want to bet that's going to slip off and fall? And I'm going to bend over and we'll pick it up and we'll rip my penis. And then I'm going to fall off the stage. I know this is going to happen. I've been too lucky too long. So, quite a week, huh? Some people seem to be a little upset. Some are a little surprised. I love pundits. I was watching them the election night, and it was hamana. And as the night drew on, they became more stupid. It's like they didn't get it. For 8 years, we had a Democratic president, and we've had protests in the street. Now we have a Republican president, and we have protests in the street. I guess some people just like to protest. So what kind of a government do we have? What kind of a government do we have where a guy like Trump can become president and a woman like Hillary can even get serious consideration? Well, we live in a republic, a constitutional republic. In fact, most everybody in this room that has worn a uniform has taken the same oath. And we've all stood in that room and we've all raised our right hand and we all said, I state your name. And I know some of us wanted to go, state your name. I really wanted to, but I didn't. I, Alan Lynch, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And then there was a whole bunch about obeying orders of officers and people appointed over you. That kind of just went out in one ear and out the other, because I got a couple of Article 15s, I got a couple of first sergeant punishments. I wasn't really good at peacetime stuff, so I volunteered to go to Vietnam because I wanted to really fight for my country. I had seen what communism was all about being in Berlin, Germany. And it was like, I know a lot of you probably are tired of hearing about, Middle Earth. And some of you may not even know what Middle Earth is. If my wife was sitting in the audience, she would just go, "Oh God, not this again. I'm so tired of Middle Earth." But Middle Earth is like the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness. In fact, as Mordor, which is the evil people, start to spread, the darkness starts to spread into Middle Earth. Well, looking into East Berlin from West Berlin, the city of lights, the city of vibrancy, and we looked across into the people's paradise, all we saw was blackness and darkness, few little lights flickering. And I knew that I didn't want to live under that kind of a government, because that kind of a government stifles and kills creativity. And I knew that if we didn't stop communism, put it right in my pocket, that way I'll avoid things. I knew if we didn't stop communism, that it would win. And so I was still very naive in 1966, December of 1966, when I volunteered to serve in Vietnam. And I served with the 1st Air Cavalry Division. Some of our men from Sheridan's Cavalry and ladies from Sheridan's Cavalry are here. And it was the best unit in Vietnam. I don't care who you served with. We were in all 4 corps. We were air mobile. We took more casualties. I'm very proud for that year that I spent with the 1st Cav Division. It's something that I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget. It was, to me, it was where I really wanted to be. In fact, I was very upset when I got pulled out of the field after I was put in for this thing. Seems Manuel Perez, a Chicago native, was kept in the field when he earned a medal in the Battle of the Philippines. And he died a short time later by enemy fire. And from that point forward, anyone that was ever put in for the Medal of Honor was pulled out of the field. So I had to leave my brothers, and they went north and took a lot more casualties, and some of my good friends were killed up there. And that really has hurt me since coming home. But this is a country that is worth fighting for, worth dying for, worth defending, because we swear allegiance to a constitution that keeps us free. We don't swear to the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the left or the right. We don't swear to one person. We don't take a blood oath like they did in Nazi Germany and hold the flag and take a blood oath and swear allegiance to an Adolf Hitler. We swear to protect our Constitution. Our Constitution. When we separated from England, we wrote the Declaration of Independence, and that says in part, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What a lot of people miss is our founding fathers were very smart in putting in their Creator and not government. Because what man gives, man can take away. But what a higher power gives, only that higher power can take away. That's critical. A lot of people want to take that out. They don't want to use that phrase because we're very secular, and God forbid we should never mention God anywhere. Yeah. That didn't sound right at first, but it still doesn't, but well, there you go. The point is that we recognize that all of us are protected by by a document called the Constitution, and it starts off, "We the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union," and so on. It's we the people, all of us, are a part of that Constitution, so that every one of us in this room, every one of us in this country is equal. God forbid that we would have a democracy like some of these idiots roaming the streets think we have. If we had a democracy, any demagogue could get up and say suddenly, "I don't like bald-headed people," and get all of you people that don't have perfect heads like mine to rally against me. And then what would happen? A democracy is nothing more than mob rule. And if we've learned anything from the wars that we fought in Europe, is that a democracy and a mob is fickle. And today they're all for you, and tomorrow they're all against you. If I'm a great speaker like an Adolf Hitler or a Mussolini, I can sway you to do whatever I want you to do. And we have thousands of examples of petty dictators that have done just that. And so this country is worth fighting for and worth defending because we have a document that guarantees all of us rights. The right to pursue happiness, the right to worship as we please or not. No one can tell us that you have to be Catholic or you have to be Protestant or you have to be Jewish or you have to be whatever. You don't even have to be anything. That's what makes this country great and well worth fighting for and defending. If you go and you look at the people that have served this country, you have Italian American veterans, you have Mexican American veterans, you have Puerto Rican American veterans, you have African American veterans, you have Irish American veterans, you have all kinds of Americans from all walks of life putting on that uniform and standing to post. That's why when you don't rise for the national anthem, you insult every single man and woman that has ever worn that uniform. It insults them. It says your service isn't worthy. It's what drives me insane. You have a multi-millionaire jackass that thinks that he's oppressed. He makes $1 million more than I'll ever see in my life, earned by people like you that have served, and he won't respect that. That's some other things I could say, but it's like company. The point is that we have men and women that have served this country in harm's way. Now I've lived through, let's see, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, Bill Clinton, George Bush, President Obama, and now we're going to get a new one, President-elect Trump. Every one of those presidents has been my president. I may not have liked their politics, but we the people of the United States of America elected them. And they are our presidents, and they need to be respected. And they need to be held to account for their promises. You know, for too long we've been electing people to office, and we've just been turning a blind eye to what they say. They promise us anything and everything to get our vote, right? They'll tell us anything we want to hear, and veterans especially. We've been the ones that, how do you like these terms? We have to take care of our veterans. Don't we just love our veterans? Oh, let's do all of this stuff for our veterans. And then as soon as they're elected, well, there's one thing I learned in government. There's always money available, just not for you. There's always money available, just not for you. And I've watched as president after president has promised to take care of the men and women that have served this country. And I have seen in the, over 45 years I've been doing this, nothing changed. Very little changed. Long waits to get claims heard. Long waits to get appeals processed. VA hospitals that are substandard. Waiting lines, scandals, rocking the VA system. And the men and women that have served this country, that have bled for it, that have lost wounds for it, that have lost arms and legs for it, that have lost their mental capacity for it, are told to wait. Wait while we worry about people that are here illegally. Wait while we send billions of dollars overseas. Wait while we take care of some special project. Wait while something else happens. And I'm tired of it, folks. And I've been tired of it for a very long time. And the only way that we are ever going to change this is to make sure when we elect someone to office that we hold their feet to the fire when it comes to veteran affairs. Now, there's so much that we can do personally through a foundation like mine that'll take care of a veteran's needs on a one-time basis. It's not a hand up. I mean, we got to face some facts. We've got some veterans that just do not want to get ahead. They don't want to work. They don't want to get ahead. Can't help them. But what we can do is we can help those veterans that have fallen on hard times, that want to take that step to improve their lives. And we need to reach out to them. The government won't do it, can't do it. Only you and I can do that. You can do that through this museum. You can do that through local veterans chapters of VFW, American Legion, Sheridan's Cavalry, and so many other ways to help that veteran and his family or her family that needs just that little bit of a leg up. Government's not going to do it. They promised. They've been talking about the homeless issue now for over 20 years. You realize that? With all of the money that we've wasted on bureaucracy, we could have bought every veteran that was homeless a mansion. I'm serious. We could have put every single one of them in a house better than anything I've ever lived in. Plus give them a whole lot of money. But we would rather establish a bureaucracy where we pay a bunch of bureaucrats not to solve a problem, but to pretend to. We've got to be a part of that solution that'll take that homeless veteran that wants to work, that wants to get ahead, and give him those tools that he needs, that she needs to do that. And we talk a lot about mentoring of young kids. We need to do some mentoring of some of our young veterans. If we ever want to pay the debt back to those young men and women that serve, that's how we have to do it. Every single one of us in this room has been through the school of hard knocks. Every single one of us could go out and reach out to a veteran that's having a problem and say, you know what, I've been down that road. I understand where you're at. Let me give you some help. Let me give you some advice. Let me give you a little bit of a hand up. Let me give you a little bit of a direction. Hey, I know somebody that'll hire you. I know somebody that'll reach out and help you get your rent taken care of. I know somebody that'll help get a job in the city that you live in. Together, if we're united in a common cause, there's nothing in the world that can stop us from achieving great things and helping others to achieve great things. It's only when we're divided, separated from each other, that we don't accomplish things. It's only when we worry about who's a Republican and who's a Democrat and who's this and who's that and who's wearing those kind of clothes and who's not. That separates us. We're Americans. We're not hyphenated. We're Americans. We've come from all over the country, all over the world, to come here. When we're united, there's nothing we can't do. We can solve every problem. We can climb every mountain. We can do anything once we put our mind to it as Americans. And we've lost sight of that fact. I look at World War II veterans that fought, came out of the Great Depression. Which makes the 2008 piece of garbage that they said was, oh my God, it's like the Great Depression. My mother and dad would be rolling over in their graves because they came out of a place where there was no food, no coal to heat their house. They knew what it was like to go without. We're on our cell phones talking about the market crashing. Really? They came out of the Great Depression. They fought two of the greatest empires the world has ever seen, the Nazis and the Imperial Japanese, and we kicked their butt all over the place. And we won. And then we won the Cold War. And we took Russia and made them go away. And now through our weakness, they're back. But we did all of that. We can do anything if we put our mind to it. Let's never forget. Let's use every Veterans Day and every Memorial Day to refocus ourselves on being a united country. And then let's start tackling right here, right in our towns, our small towns. Let's start tackling these issues and solving them and telling the bureaucrats to take a hike. Let's us do it together. That's really what this Veterans Day is all about, and that's what Memorial Day is all about, is us working together for a common cause to defeat a common enemy. In this case, it's homelessness of veterans. In this case, it's giving veterans a handout, not a handout. Thank you for your time and attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned earlier, of course, the museum is open immediately following, but right now, what I'd like to do is open it up for some questions and answers. First one, right here. Ron.
Thank you, sir. It's been an honor to listen to your remarks. And before I ask my question, you know, all of us here, or most of us here, are representatives of the Italian American community, of course. We're very proud Italian Americans. So watching you today, especially lately with the elections and the negativity and the challenges, I can honestly say that I am a proud American today because of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My father was a World War II veteran, and I remember he told me something that really stuck with me. He was an infantryman and saw battle, Anzio in southern France. And my question to you, when you're in combat, was there ever a time that, well, what he told me, because I would ask him, you know, you got these mortars just going over your head, and you're seeing your comrades and your brothers just die within feet of you, and weren't you afraid? And he said, yes, I was very afraid up to a certain point. When you saw so much death around you, he said, how I got through it was that I decided that I wasn't going to make it. I decided that there's no way I can get out of this thing. And from that moment on, he was fearless because he didn't plan on coming home. There was no way. Was there ever a time that you saw yourself in the same situation?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I had the same thought myself a few times. I was, long before the action took place, I got this. We're in the middle of a firefight, and we had to get covering fire, and I don't know why. Well, I'm not the sharpest pencil in the pack. And I found myself standing up and shooting in the middle of a firefight, and my buddy grabs me and slams me down because all in front of me were like I was being shot at by some guy that took a little issue with me standing up like that. I can understand it. But yeah, I think everybody handles it differently. We had people that, at nighttime, they just got scared half to death and couldn't function. And we had guys that were brave all the time, and it just depends. Sometimes it just gets too much, and then the next day you're fine. Battle wears you down like that sometimes. But I think your dad was absolutely right. Sometimes to get through it, you just have to say, you know what, I'm not going to make it out, so I'm going to choose how I'm going to die. I'd rather die brave than, the other way.
Another question over here.
If I can project.
Okay.
Can you tell us the story of what happened the day you earned that medal?
All right. Now I'm going to tell you what I remember. They wrote it different, but I'm going to tell you what I remember. because I've been trying to work through this most of my life, and I keep looking at all the write-ups, and I keep going, I don't remember it that way. So I just kind of, several years ago, came to the conclusion that I'll tell my story and, let the chips fall. So we walked into an ambush, and one of our point, we were walking a two-man point. Those are people that are out in front for you civilians that don't know anything about the Army. So those are two people out in front that walk out to see that you don't walk into an ambush. And both of them got shot pretty bad. One guy made it back, got about halfway back and got shot. I think it was up in the shoulder. He said that Casares was out there. He had, they literally hit both of his legs pretty good. So I had a brand new lieutenant, and I asked the LT if I could drop my radio. I figured I'll go out, I'll grab him, I'll come back. Well, by the time I got out there and crawled down the ditch to him, the fire had become pretty intense, and his legs were pretty messed up. So there was no way I could bring him out. About that time, Sergeant Esparza comes running across the field, and he gets about halfway to us and gets shot. So I ran out and I got him. I pulled him back into the trench with us, and we were there for, the citation says 2 hours. It seemed like a longer time than that. And we could hear the Vietnamese trying to get to us, and we kept killing them. And we didn't see them, but it was a hedgerow, a bamboo hedgerow. And so every time we heard them talk, we'd stick our M16 through and give them a burst. And they tried to get to us a few times. My lieutenant was shot in the head as he was trying to get to us. Captain Orsini had decided to back a track up to us and just load us in that way. They blew up the track, and in doing so, they wounded him. And so he was medevaced out, and then they decided that the cost was getting a little bit much. So they pulled back. They called in continuous artillery fire. Now that was from LZ English, Lowboy, and Apache, I want to say, I don't know. They just told me they called in from three bases. And then they tried it again, and the intense fire came up, and they pulled back, and then they called in airstrikes. And it was kind of funny because I failed algebra in high school. And so I didn't know a lot of stuff about science and smart stuff like ciphering and all that. And so this jet comes over, and he lets go of a napalm bomb like right over our head. And I thought, well, we're toast. That's it. We're crispy critters. And we all kind of, well, I didn't understand that an airplane going 300 plus whatever miles an hour, dropping something right over my head, that it's not going to hit me because it's not going to fall straight down. It's going to fall over that way. I didn't know. So I tell the kids, always study math so you don't fall into these situations. Because I wish I would have known that, because it took about 20 years off my life. I'm actually 85 years old. So, or added 20 years to my life. So that happened. They called in more artillery, and then it got very, very quiet. And I pulled the guys out. I went and reconned the hoot. There was a couple of hooches that I went through. There were some spider holes that I looked in, threw a grenade in, and whatever. And then found our guys and came back, and we all got medevac. So that's the way I heard. That's the way I remember it. Now, the way they wrote it was a lot different. You can look that up, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But a month after that, I had been out in the field. I had gone on a few missions and all that. We were doing bridge detail along, I want to say Highway 1, but I'm not sure anymore because I'm really old. And I just got my E5 stripes because I got promoted. And we had a little party the night before, and because we were a fairly safe area. And right in the middle of our party, somebody decided to do a mission, so they air assaulted in on the road that we were guarding. And we were all busy trying to get our act together and smoke a lot of cigarettes, to get the booze and all of that other stuff that we were doing going. And they pulled in, and they air assaulted in. Everybody left. And I saw my stripes kind of leaving. And the next day, I'm laying on top of the bunker trying to get through the hangover. And my company commander came and he screamed, "Sergeant Lynch, get your ass down here." I jumped on, he said, "I'll be back for you in 10 minutes. Get all your stuff packed." I'm going, oh, crap. I came back, well, evidently because of Memo Perez, I was supposed to be out of the field. They forgot that. So he got his butt chewed out by higher command for leaving me out in the field, so I was pulled back to the rear with the deer. This was probably sometime in January. And then I sat back there until I rotated home. So that's my story.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
After you rotated home and you left the Army, tell us how you found out that you were going to actually receive the Medal of Honor and that you were going to be flown to Washington. And it was at a White House ceremony where President Nixon personally presented you with the Medal of Honor. How did you find out that this was all going to take place?
Well, I was going to get married. Well, I did actually get married. I got out of the Army April 25th, 1969. About 4 months later, I met Susie, and we were going to get married April 25th, 1970. And before I went to Vietnam, there's an S-curve in Dalton. And before I went to Vietnam, I took that S-curve. And I really took it fast because it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. There was nobody there except a police officer. But I was going to Vietnam, so, I win both ways. So it worked out pretty good for me, that S-curve, being a little bit, superstitious. I thought, well, I'm on my way home. We're getting ready to have a rehearsal dinner that night. And I thought, I can't take it at 75 like I did before, but I could probably take it fairly fast if I'm careful and just be sure to slow down. So I hit that S-curve pretty good. And then I slowed right down and I saw the little things in the back. They weren't going, they were just following. And so I drove all the way home and pulled in the garage, and then he pulls in the driveway, and I'm like, oh, crap. And I got out of my car. He says, "Is your name Alan Lynch?" I said, "Yes, sir, it is." Reaching for my wallet because I knew what he wanted. And he said, walks up, he says, "Here, is this your social security number?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Here, call this number." Got in his car and drove away. I'm like, huh? So I called Washington, because it was a 202 number, and I got some lieutenant colonel, and he says, "Are you Alan Lynch?" And I said, "Yes," and all that. And he said, "Well, I have the honor to tell you that you're going to be receiving the Medal of Honor on May 14th. And I said, "But I'm getting married tomorrow." And he said, "You can go ahead and do that if you want to." So I did, and Susie and I have been married now, will be 47 years next year.
Any other questions?
Carol.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for your service along with all the other veterans in this room. You're all my heroes. My father served in World War II, my grandfather World War I, and I've got relatives in Vietnam and the Korean War. What I wanted to share with everybody in this room is this. I just retired from the Chicago Police Department, and for years I was in the school patrol unit. And when I was a kid growing up, every classroom in grammar school and high school had the American flag in the room. Usually had a picture of Abraham Lincoln or George Washington or both. But over the past few years, I've noticed they've removed the flags out of almost all the classrooms. I've worked in 7 different high schools, and I talked with officers who worked in other high schools. Not just removing the flag from the classrooms, but a lot of schools have removed the large flag pole out in front, literally cut them down, or they just don't post the flag anymore. When I went to school, they raised it in the morning and lowered it in the evening. And I think it's utterly disgraceful. We're at a point in life where you're supposed to be embarrassed if you're a patriotic citizen. I don't know how we came to that point, but it's a sad reflection on our time. And I'm watching you speak, listening to you speak. I'm looking at the American flag next to you, and you represent the flag, and the flag represents each and every one of us. And I wish that they would resurrect that. I wish they would resurrect the Pledge of Allegiance. They no longer sing the Star Spangled Banner or America the Beautiful at assemblies and schools.
You want to know whose fault that is? That's our fault. We tolerate it. We tolerate it. We let it go. We sit there and just go, okay, yeah, okay, well, we don't want to make a fuss. Oh, we might be offending someone if we have our American flag flying in our country. So let's not do anything about it. Let's just sit there.
I'm even witnessing several cities across the United States are trying to ban Columbus Day and replace it with Native American History Day. Evanston is an example. I have no objection to Native Americans celebrating their heritage, but they could do it on their own day and still retain Columbus Day. But
Well, there's
Europeans are being demonized in the revisionist history society of ours.
You're absolutely right. You know, and again, it should be more like the Erickson Day. Just saying. See, what a lot of people don't get, and what I love about history is it's neither good nor bad. It's neither right nor left. It just is. Native Americans were killing each other long before we got here. The Aztec, the Maya did human sacrifices. So to have this idea that, oh, you know, the Native Americans really got a bad deal. Well, yeah, they did. And they're getting a bad deal now. We're, once again, breaking a treaty that we have with these people, which should be, I'm outraged by it. And what really irritates me is it's happening under this president who's allowing it to happen. And I'm talking about the oil pipeline that's going across Native American lands, and I'm just insulted by that. You don't break those treaties, and we should be against those kind of things. As much as we're against the flag not being flown and the flag being disgraced and the poles being cut down in schools, we need to be outraged when outrage is needed.
Any other questions for Mr. Lynch? Yes, sir. Let me come over with the mic.
Hi, sir. Just a simple question. Being a young vet myself, how do I become like an old vet like you? Like, especially in all seriousness, like I've been back from Iraq, Afghanistan, 7 years now, and every January I'm in the hospital, and last time the cops had to come find me. So, any advice on that?
Yeah. Some of the worst times in my life is when I was going through what you're going through. And what I found, what worked for me was this. When I focus in myself and become selfish about who I am and what I've been through, and believe me, I could hold some of the best pity parties you ever saw. And I wasn't wounded. So I had a whole lot of survivor's guilt. I had friends, my best friend was killed by friendly fire. But when I focused in myself and only thought about myself, my PTSD, which is my enemy, got the best of me. And I used to have some terrible problems. I used to punch walls. I punched a truck one day. That's how smart I am. When I started thinking about other people that had problems greater than mine and started focusing on that and focusing on how I could help someone, the PTSD started to go away. And the more I focused on other people, the more it went away. Now, occasionally, because I'm, again, not the sharpest pencil in the pack, I get selfish and self-centered. And when I do, it comes back and smacks me right in the face. So my advice is, if you're suffering from PTSD, help somebody else. Go to a VA hospital, volunteer. Go to a nursing home and read. Go to a school and help tutor a kid. All of us have got a special gift. You're not here and you didn't survive Iraq, Afghanistan, or World War II, or Korea, or any of this just to come home and sit on your butt. You survived for a reason. We all did. Find it. And it will be hard. I mean, I went through 3.5 years of weekly therapy to get through some things. Then I had to go back for another year, and then I had to go back for 6 months. It was the hardest work I ever did. But in the end, it came down to, it ain't about me. In fact, on my coin, which I'm going to give you, you'll come over here. I'm going to walk over there because I'm lazy. And it is all about me after all. But on that coin, it says others, not self. And I put it there to remind me of what it is. On the flip side, I've got the rotary four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Is it beneficial to all concerned? That is a thing that I have decided about 15 years ago that I was going to try very hard to live by. So I hope that helps you.
I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your foundation, the Alan Lynch Foundation, and what you're doing and what people can do to help.
Okay. John Schwan, who is a member of Sheridan's Cavalry and who has several businesses, he really looks like a... No, we'll go see him. I did that one time in the classroom when the little girl's phone rang. Stopped, looked at her. And she got all red. Kind of like you're getting. So, John has a number of businesses, and he's probably one of the best people you'll ever meet, though he looks rather cranky. But, you know, he said, look, I want to give back. I want to do something, and I don't want my name involved with it, so I involved his name with it. But we formed a foundation, and the whole idea is that we wanted to help veterans that were falling on hard times, but we didn't want to give them just a handout. We wanted to give them a hand up. And so it's 1, maybe 2 times assistance. It has to solve the problem. It has to help them, you know, either get a job, keep a job, or get an education and continue an education. And so we'll do everything from pay rent. We bought a kid from Robbins a laptop computer because he was going to OCS and he was falling behind. And a $350 computer with an office suite on it made the world of difference to him. I think he's a lieutenant now or captain now, but we determined that we were going to do anything that might help a veteran, and we've helped World War II veterans, Korean War veterans, Vietnam veterans, you know, every kind of veteran you could have. And the whole idea is that these men and women served our country, and we need to be able to be there for them. And we can take, you know, donations at the at ajlynchfoundation.org. There's a way to donate online. We're now a part of Operation Support Our Troops America, and we're now no longer the Lynch Foundation. Come January 1st, we're going to be the A.J. Lynch Veteran Services Program, the program of Operation Support Our Troops America. They have 5 stars, or I think it's 5 stars, 4 stars on Charity Navigator. Most of the money that you raise, not like some other organizations where 90% goes into somebody's pocket and 10% may go to help somebody. Our deal is that we want to spend as little as possible on overhead so that more money can go into the veteran's pocket. We've worked with VA social workers. We've worked with Veterans Organization, Volunteers of America, Catholic Charities. And again, we've worked with Veterans Assistance Commissions. And the whole idea is to give veterans a hand up, not a handout.
Very good.
And checks can always be made to the A.J. Lynch Foundation.
Any other questions?
Oh, no, not him. I'm not going to answer his question. He's going to ask me something dumb. I know he
I'm
is.
gonna give the mic to make sure you hear it.
No, I'm friends on, what is it, LinkedIn with Joe Esparza. He lost part of his arm. It seems the bullet that he got shot with, he got, not only did he get shot coming to get us, but while we're laying there, he got shot again a second time, and evidently it was a dirty bullet. The Viet Cong, as you well know, well, most of you know, like to enhance their bullets with human waste. So they would, so if you got shot, you've got an infection. So yes on one and two on the other. That's Joe Fernelli, by the way. I've known Joe for what, 25, 30 years now? Joe's a phenomenal artist. Absolutely
Also a Vietnam veteran.
And he's a Vietnam veteran. We call him tail gunner, door gunner Joe. Notice the historical reference to tail gunner Joe for all you guys that are that era. Just saying.
Any other questions? All right, I have one. I have to get a little assistance. Mason, please stand up. Mason Holmes, Vietnam veteran, U.S. Army, 1st Cav, Air Mobile. Explain the significance of the Stetson, because we always see pictures of you guys from the 1st Cav, not only going back to Vietnam days, but even today, when I see 1st Cav troops that have been in Iraq, been in Afghanistan, they're wearing the Stetson.
Horse mounted troops in 1920s and 30s in Italy, they were able to wear the hats. And then in Vietnam, we didn't have horses, but the French force we had helicopters. And a certain one of the units, the first unit, infantry, which had Cobra helicopters, other helicopters, those pilots, because they were true cavalry, even though we were in cavalry division, we had battalions and infantry battalions, they were cavalry. Went out, sought out the enemy, killed them, etc. And the pilots of those helicopters, the choppers, were authorized to wear the Stetson. And then what happened about 15 or 20 years later, after the war, is that the 1st Cavalry Division allowed all active cavalry troopers plus alumni, those who are sort of veterans, allowed us all to wear these very distinctive things. So that's how it happened.
Any other questions for Mr. Lynch? Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure and an honor, sir, for us to have you here with us tonight. And I want to give you a big round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't mind a whistle or two. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be taking some pictures by the posters, so if anybody wants to take some pictures, by all means, come and join us, come and join Al. And of course, the museum is open, and I encourage everyone to stop by and take a look at the museum. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.